Happy Halloween.
Welcome to Haunted with a View.
I am a search and rescue officer, and the unfortunate reality of my job is that I often go looking for missing children. Nearly all of them are reported to the visitor center, and nearly all of them are found. In my role, only one search stands out to me. A boy, 7 years old, orange shirt, blue shorts, and black shoes, blonde hair, blue-eyed, went missing from the visitor center. He was with his parents one moment, just outside, and the next they turn around and he was gone. As always, all hands on deck. I assume my usual role of driving the main road, stopping where the trails intersect to hike a few minutes to see if I can find any sign of the boy. Luckily, orange is an easy color to spot in nature, but that wasn't what caught my eye this day. Just off a well-traveled trail, about 30 feet from the road, a staircase appeared. It didn't materialize in front of me, but I can tell you that these stairs have never been here before. They were made of wood with a handrail on the left side and seemed to be cut off from a pristine home and placed in the dense vegetation. The sun didn't break through the canopy of trees, yet somehow it seemed the stairs were illuminated. Curious, I walked up to them. If I were a young boy, I thought, I would check these out. At the bottom of the stairs, my left arm extended and hand reaching for the rail, I felt a feeling of dread come over me. Fear that ran so deep, I decided to refocus my search on a different area. Turning back to the trail, I was almost there when I heard screaming. Turning back from the direction that the stairs had been, a young boy with blue eyes, blonde hair, and an orange shirt ran towards me. "Didn't you hear me scream from the stairs?" he yelled angrily. I looked past him again to the stairs, but all that stood there was dark, deep forest. "Kid, we've been looking for you everywhere," I said, instead of the thoughts that raced through my head. "Let's get you back to your parents." And I grabbed his hand and started walking. "Slow down," he insisted. My shoes got too small and I had to take them off. Odd, I thought. My own child, who was a little older than this boy, insisted on wearing his shoes everywhere. Back at my truck, I radioed headquarters to let them know I had the missing boy and drove him back to the visitor center. As I parked my truck, I helped him out, and he said, "I'm surprised my parents are still here," and then ran off to them in joy. Standing back, I observed the reunion while still unable to shake the feeling the stairs gave me if they were there at all. And that was when I noticed the interaction every parent has with their child at some point. After wrapping him in a hug, his mother grabbed him by the shoulders, held him at arm's length, and looked at him like, "When did you get so big?" And then the details struck. His shirt was cropped up to his belly, his shorts were ragged and worn, his shoes got too small, and he was surprised his parents were still there waiting for him. This boy, who had been missing for just over an hour, looked like he lost 2 years of his life. And the sickening feeling I felt standing at the base of the stairs washed over me again. Welcome back to Tragedy with a View.
Spooky!
My name is Kayla. I am your host. There's Chris and Sam with me today. This is very much intended to be a spooky story. So let that
Buckle in.
there's a couple of things in here that I particularly was not fond of reading and then rewriting, and I'm going to retell here. And I will let you know my initial reaction when I first read this story. I text Sam one of my reactions. If you listen to this intro and you're like, "I think I've heard this story before, I just don't remember all of those details," it's because I added things, because I myself am a parent and I can relate to children growing unexpectedly and not understanding and like having a hard time comprehending how quickly they grow. So I embellished the story. So if you've heard this and you've been like, "Wait, what?" You're not wrong. Second, nearly all of my research for this episode came from Reddit, and there's one particular poster that kind of triggered this whole thing, and I'm going to be reading that story. You have probably heard it. I know you've heard it. And this is meant to kind of be a little bit like conspiracy theory topic talk. And then last but not least, Patreon members in 2024, you're going to start getting exclusive episodes. So keep your eye out for that. Sign up if you're not already signed up.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I'm hoping to start January 1. It's going to be on the first of every month. You're going to get a special episode. Planning loosely for January 1.
Do you have any behind the scenes for what the episode's gonna be?
I do, and I'll just give you the warning that if you are not a fan of tight places, you might need a blankie. Your comfort blanket. Okay, so starting with, we're talking about this disappearing staircase phenomenon, which has been getting posted on and off for years. I believe it started with this Reddit story. I don't know for sure, though, if that's where it started, but that seems to be like the earliest post that I can find. This particular post, or this particular section of the post, comes at the bottom of a kind of list that a search and rescue officer provided of his like craziest, most memorable searches. So he had like a few lined out.
Are you saying that's from the comments section?
No.
Okay.
No, it is the original poster.
That's where the real action happens, we all know.
Yes, I do have stories from the comments, but they've got, you know, your original post. He says, these are the most memorable things, looking for this woman, looking for this child, looking for this person. And then...
So the poster is the search and rescue person. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Not 100% sure that he is actually who he says he is.
That's the internet.
There's questions.
Conspiracy number one. They
Conspiracy
already
number-
started 4 minutes in.
Conspiracy number one, and I'll get into why I think that he's not who he says he is, or maybe she. I'm not entirely sure. So at the end of the post is this section that I'm going to read, and people went nuts wanting to know more about the stairs. Okay, so that post is, this is the last one I'll tell you, he writes, and it's probably the wildest story I have. Now, I don't know if it's true for every search and rescue unit, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken, regular thing that we run into. You can try asking about it with other search and rescue officers, but even if they know what you're talking about, they probably won't say anything about it.
How convenient.
Right? So also, if you're reading anything on Reddit, a lot of search and rescues refer to themselves as SAR, which is search and rescue. So you'll see that abbreviation instead of search and rescue. We have been told not to talk about it by our superiors, and at this point, I've gotten so used to it that it doesn't seem weird anymore. On just about every case where we are really far into the wilderness, I'm talking 30 or 40 miles at some points, we find staircases in the middle of the woods. It's almost like you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and put them in the forest. I asked about it the first time I saw one, and the other officer told me not to worry about it, that it was normal. Everyone I asked said the same thing, and I wanted to check them out, but I was told empathetically that I should never go near them. I just sort of ignore them now when I run into them because it happens so frequently. So then there's multiple updates. Like, I want to say like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 updates, sharing more stories. And then the original poster has another update.
Yeah, it's really interesting how it's almost like a wives' tale, right? Where they all know, like before the internet or anything like that, it's like these stairs have always kind of been there, but stay away from them because there's something weird going on.
Yes. So then we've got the final update.
Final update. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. So he says, or she says, I don't know. I'm assuming it's a guy.
They said.
They said. That's fair. This will be my final update for now. Things have deteriorated here to a degree that I haven't foreseen. I didn't know how much my writing about things that are happening out here would affect every single part of my life, and maybe that was stupid of me. Maybe I should have considered it more seriously, but honestly, I just thought I was writing about things that a few people would want to hear. I didn't think it would get this much attention. And I think the part of the reason that everything is so believable with this particular writer is that he starts out very authentic. I'm not saying that this person isn't a search and rescue officer. I'm just saying that I have my doubts because
They're being vulnerable and opening up to gain your trust.
Wait, so why do you have doubts that this person isn't the person that they say they are?
we'll get to it. We'll get to it. There's the way that they say things kind of has me thinking either maybe they were one in the past and they're just sharing like old stories, and then there's like, oh, let me add this thing in here too. I truly believe that this entire post was meant to circle the stairs.
What do you mean by circle the stairs? Like,
That was the main point. He's going to pull you in with all of these other true believable stories that either he or she has been a participant in, or
So you're saying the other stories don't necessarily involve the stairs. It was the last
other stories
story.
do not involve the stairs.
Okay, so he
it was just
provided
that last.
credible evidence to
Yes.
suggest that he's real.
Yeah, because I mean, if you just like share a post that's like, I come across stairs all the time in the woods and they're not always there, and sometimes they appear and sometimes they disappear and they look like the stairs that you would cut out of your house, and we have no explanation for them, people are going to be like, are you high? What drugs are you on?
maybe they ate some of the mushrooms in the forest or something.
There's that. Okay, so back to the post. People ask me about the stairs now. It doesn't happen every day, but when it does happen, I never really know what to say. My bosses know someone is talking about them, and I'm sure that if they know, the higher-ups know. And I can tell you that they aren't happy about it. And so
I'm getting scared for my own safety.
that's part of the reason that it just doesn't feel authentic to me, because a lot of search and rescue organizations they're not like massive, things. A lot of search and rescue are localized.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The higher ups, it's like, this mass conspiracy about stairs in the woods or something like that. That's an interesting way to word it, for sure.
It's not like the Department of Defense is like breathing down their neck about this. It's
As far as you know.
as far as I know. That's
Are
fair.
we even allowed to talk about this right now?
If you
This is when I say something like, I'll never kill myself. Just know that. AKA, if I disappear randomly, it's not because I killed myself.
FBI, open up the door!
If we disappear, we found a staircase.
It was the CIA.
we didn't find a staircase.
Okay, the CIA or the FBI or the higher-ups found us.
The higher ups. Okay. I have been formally told that I am not to speak a word about them to anyone anymore, which is part of the reason this has to be my final update. I can't risk my job for this. I want you to put a little pin in that part. Okay? He can't talk about them anymore. This has to be his final update.
As he proceeds to talk about it a lot more.
Actually, he doesn't really talk about the stairs too much in this one. Okay. There's other things, though. As much as it's been wonderful to get these things off of my mind, I still do love my work and need to be out here. If anything, my being aware of what's really going on is enough reason to stick it out. I may not be able to tell people that are out there, but if I see them, I can direct traffic away somewhere safer. Because of the amount of attention these stories have gotten, I've heard a lot of stories being swapped back and forth. I've heard so many I can't even remember most of them. The ones I do remember, I wish I could forget. One story that made the rounds here was a young woman who disappeared upstate. Initially, everyone assumed that she was a runaway. She didn't come from a great home life, and so it really wasn't any kind of surprise that she had chosen to cut and run. But people started coming forward saying that they'd seen her around the park shortly before she vanished. So some of the rangers in the area were sent out to make sure she hadn't hung herself or something on any of the back trails. It took them a while, but they did find her. Well, not all of her, just half of her tongue and a quarter of her lower jaw. Very clean cuts from what I heard. They never found the rest of her.
That's not what you want.
Dramatic shift here. Okay, now we're talking about potential murder, I guess. The higher ups did it. I knew it.
Is it murder if you can't prove it?
No, I think I was reading about a story yesterday where it was like somebody, they had lost their arm, or like just their arm got cut off, because it's almost like it kind of implies like this really weird like dimensional like cut to where it's like literally just what was it, or is her tongue and
Half her tongue and a quarter of her lower jaw.
half her tongue. So it's like yeah, like part of her body like ended up going into this
story on it.
yeah other dimension or something, and then just literally it snaps in, and like yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Okay. So many stories about children. So many of them going missing and turning up in caves, wedged in between impossibly tight spaces. So many of them found on mountain peaks or at the bottom of sheer gullies. Missing shoes, missing socks, or found with both in perfect condition despite being miles from where they vanished. This next part is the part that makes me want to throw away my tent. It's going to be a very long time. Like, even if I set it up in the living room, I'm going to be like, oh, a little bit spooked. So many stories of black-eyed people wandering around the woods and calling out in the night, mimicking the sounds of running water or a bobcat screaming. Which, how do you know that this person, if you can recognize a bobcat screaming or running water, how do you know that it's the person making the noise?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, unless you see the person making that noise, but I guess if when they say black-eyed, I imagine they mean like no irises, no like whites of their eyes or anything. It's just like
Yeah.
almost like an alien, like stereotypical. But I don't know, maybe it's like if you see something like that that's so terrifying, it's like you kind of just automatically assume that they're the ones that were
the
doing it, because
Well, what if you know that there's no running water, but you hear running water? It's like if there's no river nearby, and then you hear running water, you're like, this is weird.
There's a lot of animals in the woods.
Well,
One's taking a piss.
well, there's a difference between babbling water brooks and piss sound. One is like psst, and one is.
the real questions is the difference between piss and brooks. Here on Tragedy with a View.
We're talking about really deep stuff today, guys. All right. So one man in particular goes to every news station he thinks will listen to him and tells the same story. He was deer hunting, had camped out in a very remote area, and woke up because something scraped against his tent. He thought it was a raccoon or a fox until the thing pressed its face against the door of the tent, at which point he could very clearly make out a human mouth and nose. Did you read this one?
No.
Have you seen it? Okay.
No. Oh God.
He kicked at it, but it leapt back and was gone by the time he opened his tent flap, gun at his side.
Why would you open your tent flap?
I know. I would not be. I'm done. I'm out. Peace. I'm leaving.
You have to open your tent flap if you want to leave.
Nope. I'm hopping around with it over me.
She's mouse wheeling it.
I don't want to see a thing out there, okay? He fired 2 warning shots, and when the sounds faded, he heard a snap behind him. A man was standing at the edge of the campsite. This man was not wearing any clothing, but also didn't possess any kind of human flesh. As this hunter described it, the man was made of some amalgamation of raw meat and hair, as if someone had scooped up roadkill and molded it into the vague shape of a man. The face was lumpy and only had a rough approximation of a human face. The thing opened its lopsided mouth, and from it came the sounds of the gun the hunter had just fired. It did this twice before mimicking the sound of a tent zipper and fled into the night.
Hell no.
It's like, throw the tent away.
It's like, I am done with the woods.
We are not. Sam was just like last week or something. He was like, "Hey, do you want to go camping before it gets too cold? Like now that."
I just wanted to go camping in the backyard, and she was like, nope.
Absolutely not. Can't do it. Not yet. Give me like a year. Maybe my next year.
I can't remember. There's like the description of like lumps and hair and flesh and stuff like that. There's this disease. I can't remember what it's called, but like deer get it, like white-tailed deer and stuff, where it's almost like these weird growths kind of appear on them.
I do remember that.
I showed it to you, but I can't remember what it was called. But the description of that kind of reminds me of that, like almost like if a human were to have gotten that. I think it's it's like the equivalent of mad cow for deer, but that description is very interesting. It reminded me of that.
Oh, this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that what it's called? Is that the right thing?
Heartbreaking photo shows deers covered in tumors. I don't
Oh,
know
here it
what
is.
it's
Here
called.
it is. CWD. I think it stands for chronic wasting disease.
I'll post a picture to social media so that way you can.
View at your own caution.
That looks not fun. Okay. We got the next story, or the next part
There's
of...
some more?
There's more.
Oh, God.
This one's not quite as bad. It's still like a little disarming, but a young couple out for a hike in the rocky area of my park reported to me yesterday that they had seen something very strange out on a peak that I am very familiar with. They were taking turns looking through a pair of binoculars when the man noticed a hiker climbing up a very steep part of the cliff face. He watched the man scale the slope, and it didn't occur to him until the incident that this person had no climbing gear. When the climber reached the top of the peak, which was about 5 miles away, they turned to face the young man. He said whoever or whatever this person was looking right at them. The climber waved in an exaggerated manner before snapping in half at the waist, sideways, and leaping off of the peak. The young man didn't see where the climber landed. I sent them on their way with the assurance that I'd check it out. I lied. I won't be turning in a report because there are 10 others exactly like it. The climber is well known in that area. I don't question it anymore.
So is this like the multiple reports are the same climber that people are seeing, like the same thing occur?
Apparently.
Ooh,
I
spooky.
First, if it's well known in that area, I'm going to assume that more than one person has seen this, and more than one person would probably document it on some sort of social media. I tried looking for more stories about it because I thought that was very interesting.
Unless they were scared straight, they couldn't talk about it because they were so scared.
Because of the higher ups, absolutely. The other thing that I don't like about it is...
It wouldn't be a conspiracy episode without higher ups.
It's true.
But who are the higher ups? I want to know who these people are.
What if we're the higher ups?
So next, I want to know what type of binoculars they were looking through to be able to so clearly see 5 miles away.
How far do normal binoculars normally see?
We have some decent binoculars here, and when there's deer going through the field behind us, which I would put half-mile max.
Half mile, maybe. Probably less than that.
Yeah.
Probably like a quarter mile, really.
Yeah, it's not far. Our decent binoculars, like, we can see those deer, but you're not seeing a mile. You might be able to make out the shape of a deer at a mile, but this is 5.
Yeah, so to be able to like clearly see their face and stuff like that is just probably not.
To be able to see them turn and look at you, to know that they were looking at you is kind of like,
Maybe it's like some weird ethereal thing. I mean, if this guy is literally some ghost or something like that, then maybe it can exaggerate its presence, or maybe it's bigger than what you'd think. So it's like if you're 5 miles away, you know, like maybe it's like a giant or something. I mean,
maybe.
I don't
This is
know.
what we're looking for. We're warming them up.
Split in half at the waist. Okay, that I don't even know really what that means. Split in half at the waist sideways. Like, I feel like it makes me think that the person like shifted onto all fours, but instead of going forward, they went sideways and were like running awkwardly. Okay, so there are so many things I won't ever be able to understand about my job. It would take me a year to relate all of these things I've heard in the last few months. When I feel my job isn't in jeopardy, I will come back. It may be in a different format, but I will come back.
Is this the same person?
This is this person.
Is this the same person?
This is the same person.
Wait, did he talk about the gunshot guy too?
Yes.
This guy is just spilling all the beans, man.
He's not allowed to talk about the stairs. He's not talking about the stairs. If you go into the woods, I encourage you to be safe. Bring water, food, survival equipment. Let people know where you're going and when you'll be back. Don't go on uncharted paths unless you know exactly what you're doing. And above all, about the stairs, don't touch them, don't look at them, go up them. Which I like that part. That part stands true.
well, this guy, that he's building credibility because he's like, oh, I'm not crazy. I care about your safety. It makes him feel like he's got empathy and as an actual human being rather than just a crazy person talking about crazy stuff.
That's fair. He then
The empathy sandwich. Empathy, credibility, shit in the center, and then credibility at the end.
He then edits the post later to say that a book is in the works. So all of that talk that I was talking about earlier that I was like, I don't know if I believe this guy, that right there. Because the higher ups know and they're telling him, hey, you can't talk about this. Why are you writing a book?
What if he is a higher up and he's a whistleblower of the higher ups? So he's like, oh, it's definitely not me, but it is him. And it's just, he's because he's trying to protect everybody from the stairs or literally whatever else horror things are out there.
If he's a higher up, I like it. I like that. Be a whistleblower. Okay, so after reading this post, another found that it triggered a memory for them, and so they wrote in saying that when they were a child, around 7 or 8, living in Sweden, he and a friend had gone into the woods to explore and play Vikings. When they came upon a clearing, and in that clearing was a stone staircase that ended into nothing. The stairs were covered in cracks and moss, and when the two boys entered the clearing, they felt a chill come over them. His friend approached and then ascended the steps, and as soon as both of his feet were on the top step, he screamed and then toppled backwards down the stairs. In fright, he ran away. The boy ran away, left his friend behind, ran away all the way back to his friend's house, and when he finally got there, he felt a hand clamp down on his shoulder, and it was his friend. So he was like, I'm not really sure how you caught up to me so quickly because you were still at the bottom of the stairs when I left. He finally asked his friend what happened, and his friend said the scream did not come from him and that something hit him in the face. And sure enough, on one side of his face, it was red, like he did in fact get hit. There is another story from a search and rescue officer who was in training, and while he and his instructor were out in the woods, they came across some stairs. His instructor told him to leave them alone and get used to seeing them because they pop up a lot, but he wasn't able to ignore them. Climbing the stairs, he reached the top, which gave way to the forest floor below him. Looking straight out, he saw a tree branch just a couple feet away, so he reached out to grab a hold of the branch when something suddenly and cleanly sliced his hand off, which fell to the forest floor. In complete disbelief, he somehow made it down to the bottom of the stairs, and from there, everything becomes a blur. What he knows is that once they left the area, the stairs disappeared and never came back, and considering the fact that they were never able to find his hand, the stairs took it with them.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, see, that's evidence for the barrier plane slicing.
There is, yeah.
And I think it's really interesting too how it seems like all of these stories they're very conditional. Like it's you can see the stairs and you can like pass by them, but the moment that you interact with them, the moment that you actually like touch them, it's like you're in its realm now. It's like it's almost like you're inside of its belly and you're kind of just at the whim of whatever those things are. It's terrifying.
Yeah. So there's other stories have popped up in recent years indicating the stairs have a time warp to them. One claiming that he was a ranger in the Philippines, and while searching for a missing person, he climbed the stairs to get a better vantage point, saw nothing but mist, and turned around to return back to park headquarters, where he learned that he had been fired from his job because he had not shown up to work for 5 years. And then there was another just really random post that I found that there was nothing in the body. It was just like the heading that said, I found stairs while on my hike through a national park. I've been walking down them for 3 days now.
Go ahead.
Okay, that one seems a little trollier. I mean, not that I've perused national parks or anything, but is there really service out there? Like, or if you're in the middle of it?
Not really.
Okay. I mean,
I
that's just
mean,
kind of.
you might if you're close enough to a town or like close enough to a cell tower. But if we believe what the original like poster stated, where he was like 30, 40 miles out in wilderness.
Well, it's kind of one of those things too, where you're almost, if you're on these stairs, it seems like because of all the different variables and stuff that happen, it's like you're in a different dimension itself. So maybe you could have service, but I don't know. It just seems kind of weird that if you're like literally in a different world for the most part, it's like, yeah, but my cell phone is like, I don't know.
That's one that is like, I put it in because it's like, this one is clearly somebody's just trying to pull your leg, right? And all of the things kind of like quote unquote work against you because like in this statement, because the people who are like claiming that they went up these stairs and then came back down, they have no sense that they've lost any time at all. They're just like doing what they do. But this one's like, I've been walking back down them for 3 days. Also, do phone batteries last for 3 days? Why are you going to Reddit for help?
Why would you go to Reddit for help in the first place? You know, that is the last place to go.
Oh gosh, we're gonna have the Reddit trolls after us. We're gonna get Reddit infamous famous.
Oh, I've already had bad reviews on Reddit.
Really?
Yeah. Someone told me that the host of this podcast sounded unprofessional.
Okay.
Come at us, Reddit. We're not afraid of you.
Okay, then if you think I'm unprofessional,
It's okay. Most of the people that are on Reddit, they just don't have anything that they've accomplished in their life, so they get mad about it. I'll throw all the shade that I can at these Redditors. Get out of here.
let's go. Interestingly, stairs in the woods are actually not uncommon. In the past decade, people talk about these stairs more and more often, and few things stay consistent no matter where the story comes from. The stairs are there. They're made of wood, stone, or iron. They're miles from any sort of settlement, and there is no logical reason for them being there. Many of these stories started in the States, mostly like northeastern area, which I think is also interesting because Salem is in that area, and like all of the witch hunt and really spooky ghosty stuff seems to be in that area, which of course stairs would fit right in with that, right? Besides that though, locations from all over the world are now chiming in. So we have the story from the Philippines, there's stories in South America, there's a story in Africa. Stairs are being found in really dense wooded forests, but they're also in like meadows and clearings. And I even found one that said that they found a set of stairs in a lake. There are 2 iconic staircases in woods, and I'm sure many people have been to one of them in particular, which is the 2,000-foot long staircase built into the Nam Kulin Mountains in Cambodia, and it holds religious significance for Buddhists and Hindus. So there's like...
It's like a pilgrimage type thing where you're
Yes.
actually having to climb it and everything.
Yes. And then there's another one that was associated with the Chesterfield Castle that was built by Madame Antoinette Cherie in the 1920s, I think. In 1962, the castle burnt to the ground, leaving behind only the stairs that led to the second floor. So there are real stairs in the woods that make no, like, I mean, if you don't know anything about them, you're going to see them and you're going to be like, what the heck is this doing here?
But they have a story.
They do have a story. And
I mean, that staircase, that is the history of that house. That is a tragic story.
And
potentially death.
Yeah, I mean, and then there are people who feel energy, and if something negative happened in a place, they're going to feel that negative energy, and they're going to associate those stairs with dread and fear and demise. And they're not going to know why. And they're going to be like, peace out. There's stairs in the middle of the woods. I don't understand.
Well, it's like the kids with the meadow where they felt a chill immediately. It's like you can feel this higher presence of like these emotions that have been embodied into these areas and everything like that. And I think it's interesting too with the stories, like how they're more coming out of all these different places. And it's like it kind of makes sense from, like the development of humanity and stuff like that. Like the internet is a relatively new thing. So
Right.
it actually accessing these areas, now people can actually share the stories. Whereas like, in New England, all of this, like there was a lot of communication, a lot of people there. So of course we've had those stories from places like that because there were a bunch of people there recording it and documenting it and actually being able to share it.
Right.
So
Yeah. So there are two common themes to people retelling their stories. First, a alien-like face appears, and it's got the round black eyes, and the other is that you enter some sort of time warp or dimension. They don't seem to intersect.
The fourth dimension, where the aliens are.
We're going to get to that.
Good.
It is theorized.
I mean, it's just facts, so
It might be.
it's just the facts.
So serious. It is theorized that these stairs and the fact that they appear and disappear from locations that are super hard to reach is the reason that so many people go missing in national parks and are never found. So there's actually a lot of people who go missing in national parks and are never found.
I mean, I bet you the guy that's still walking down the stairs after 3 days was never found.
Maybe he encountered a few people.
I mean, and I guess going to the whole dimensional thing, like an interesting thing about, like we know from our dimension and physics and stuff like that, that gravity literally bends time. So it's like if you are in space, you age differently than if you're on Earth. And it's like if you just apply that to these different areas, like the staircases, for instance, if that's its own plane, for lack of a better word, it's like then we know, at least in the physical world of our understanding, that it is possible to literally bend time around these spaces. So now what these things are, that is a question in itself, I suppose.
That is. So there is another theory for the stairs themselves, is that aliens use them because their ships can't come down close enough to Earth.
I mean, I think that's interesting because in all these stories, the stairs don't lead, it's just emptiness. It's like it just.
Is it truly emptiness though, or
Well,
is there
there
something
is an appearance
at
of
the end of those
emptiness.
stairs, and it's that we can't see, and maybe it is an alien ship that's at the top of those stairs waiting, and that's
And these people's hands are just getting sliced off by their energy shields.
could be, yeah.
Or it's like if you're not given permission to go to where, well, whatever is past the top of the stairs or whatever like that, you're going to get punished for it, right? Like these beings, or maybe the aliens, whatever they might be, it's like they're like, hey, we didn't invite you over here, you are in our territory now. And it's like, just
We have a quota of 3 children, no adults. That's why the kid got through and the guy got his hand sliced off.
Well, and it is interesting. I mean, people have been getting, at least abduction stories have been around for millennia, so it's not like this in itself is a new thing, but it's how it's manifesting in staircases and stuff like that. That's a really interesting thing that most people, I guess, don't really think about in that regard.
It's interesting. Anytime we talk about aliens, like my family and I am not, let me rephrase that. I am a believer. I have absolutely nothing to support that. Nothing. If somebody, and this has happened, if somebody told me that an alien ship, a UFO came over our house, okay, what? What are you seeing? Like, there's probably a better logical reason, like explanation for that. But many, many, many years ago, I was in my room, which is on the other end of the house, and it was like kind of dusk-ish time frame, pretty dark. Sun was like mostly down past the horizon. And all of a sudden, my brother comes flying into the house and he's like, Kayla, you need to come outside. You need to come see this. And I was just like, I'm like reading a book, which is completely normal for me. So I'm reading a book and I'm like, no, okay, what is it? And he's like, yeah, I can't believe it. You need to come see this. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I get up and I'm like taking my time, get up, mark my book page, put my book down, go walking out, grab my sandals on my way. Like, I'm not rushing. And my brother's like running back and forth, like from me to the door, from me to the door. So I finally get out. We were high school aged, by the way. We're in high school. So finally, like, get out the garage door, go outside, and my brother is running towards the property line out here between our neighbors and us. And out there is my dad, my mom, the neighbor dad, and his son. And my brother's running towards them, and all of them are like looking up in the sky, like looking around. And I'm like, I look up and I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't see anything. What are you guys looking at? And they were like, UFOs.
Now, could they see them at the could they see them at the same moment that you could not see it, or did they see it and you
No.
just missed it?
They saw it, I missed it. And so they saw like an oval shaped thing that had different lights on it, and it came straight down. It was up way high. It came straight down, hovered above the field, kind of out diagonally from our properties, and then like shot off and was gone.
Yeah, so her father actually told this story, and something to add to this is that he was like coming home, or they were driving along the road, and along with seeing the ship, he actually saw like a fighter plane. So like something that he recognized as a plane that was following this thing. So that gives a little bit of extra credibility to be like, the government knows that this thing is here and is monitoring it. So like it wasn't just the UFO by itself, it was multiple
the jet as well.
objects.
And my dad is very, very good.
They love Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's his like favorite place to go.
It is.
He goes there like once a month.
If we hear planes or helicopters or anything coming over the house, my dad is running outside to identify it. And
So is every other man.
well,
I mean, that's a joke.
that's fair, but I mean, like, he's very good at identifying them pretty quick. Like, my dad knows the differences and like what's all out there. And so for him to be like, this is a foreign flying object that is either something that the government has not informed us of or is not from this world, I'm going to believe him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you take all the stuff that's coming out within the last few years about like literally, it's not people who would be considered crazy or anything saying it's like, no, there are these craft that we do not understand. And then the government's like, oh, but it's not aliens. It's like, how do you know? You don't know what it is. It very well could be aliens. You're just like, oh, I mean, it makes sense. The government doesn't want people to panic or anything like that. But it's at the same time, you have to acknowledge that there's these things that we just don't know what they are, and they're here, and maybe they have staircases everywhere too, or
They probably do. I mean, it would answer. It's like one of those things where like the more you're there, the more likely it is to happen. So like they say with especially flying small aircraft, the more you fly and the longer you fly small aircraft, the more likely you are to crash. The more you're out in the woods and the more long-term amount of time that you spend in the woods, the more likely you're probably to find. And like off the beaten trail, like you're probably going to find something that has no explanation.
well, and that just that's like literally anything, right? The
Right.
more that you do any particular thing, the more likely that things related to that scenario will happen. So
Unexplainable things.
yeah,
Yeah.
like literally just it's the more iterations that occur, then the more likely it is to actually or I need to go out into the forest more often, I guess. I need to, I'm not going to climb up the staircase, but,
Well, what will you do? Are you gonna camp?
No, I'm not.
Are you gonna camp? Are you gonna go camping?
No, I don't need some human face thing that's in, scared, some fur flesh thingy.
You know what, Logan, this morning, I don't know what he was thinking. So I'm thinking about this episode. I know we're doing this today. I know like the story that I need to tell. My tent is laying on my bedroom floor. It's rolled up. It's put away, but it's on my bedroom floor where I can see it all the time. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, what the heck? So Logan brushes his teeth. He wanted to be alone this morning, so he brushes his teeth. He has the door closed. I hear him going, okay, rinse your mouth, rinse the brush away. And then I hear him open the door and he just screams bloody murder. And I'm like it was like a terrified scream. It wasn't just like him being goofy and like screaming for me. There was like some feeling in it. And my heart just like dropped. And I was just like, oh my God, the crazy guy with the meat suit is in my house.
It's them.
And so that was my morning. So now I'm gonna be frightened until Sam shows up tonight to ease my nerves, tell me I'm crazy.
We can go camping still.
No.
I think tonight is the perfect night to go camping based off of all these stories here,
Face your fears.
Interesting.
Not to mention, it's all these things happen when seems like when people are by themselves. So as long as you're together, then it seems like you'll probably be safe. Uh-oh.
All right, we are on page 4, a young couple out for a hike.
I said corrected.
So those are my spooky stories for you guys. And the explanation that
Ooh, spooky.
aliens are behind it.
In the fourth dimension. And alien spaceships.
Are we not are we not sure that the fourth dimension and aliens are not together?
Well, it's an interesting thing because the government always says they're not extraterrestrial. They didn't say that they're not extra-dimensional. So, maybe they're just relying on the technicality that, like, they're not actually it's not like they're necessarily from a different planet, but they're just from a different plane of existence there's like this interesting theory of like the hologram theory where if like you have a third dimensional object that became second dimensional, it would just be like a point or a line because we can't really interface with that and the second dimension can't understand us. So in the same way, the fourth dimension, they have it's like a reflection of what they actually are as opposed to their form itself. So what we actually see is not what they look like. It's just all we can perceive as third dimensional beings because that's what our bodies and sensory stuff is. So
It's interesting, the idea of dimensions, and there's been a lot of like this overlap, I think, lately with dimension and time and explanations for things that we can't explain. And there's already the unanimous acceptance that aliens exist, and the government finally admits it to us, and like every citizen is just blinking. They're like, yeah, what's your point? We know. So clearly the higher ups did not do a very good job on that particular front.
Well, it's hard to control information with the internet, like everybody literally gets to, I mean, people obviously make stuff up too, but at the same time, and going to the dimensional thing, I think that there's like ways that we can, like literally we kind of manifest that in its own self. Like for instance, Sam has a story where like a dog was a stray dog, or it wasn't a stray dog, but it was running around the neighborhood. And, just through nonverbal communication, like body language and like aura that's put off, like a dog's aggression got stowed. And I think that like if you look at how animals interact with each other, they don't interact with, like we've kind of forgotten because we've got sentience and we're not really connected to our animal instincts as much, how we can communicate with these nonverbal things, or like through electromagnetism and all of these things that we understand as physical properties of our world, but in terms of our abilities to manipulate them, things that animals do all the time. And it's just we've kind of forgotten that part of ourselves. And I think that there probably could be something to that in terms of these higher dimensions and all that type of stuff too.
Yeah. Having worked with horses for many years, there's a lot. So much that goes into body language. And it's pretty, I'm going to say it's pretty specific to certain species, but there's like general ways of saying things as well. So like with horses, when they're kind of like, you're the boss, okay, I got it, they drop their head, they'll start licking their lips. That's like a submissive thing, is to like, put you above them. And then like you look at dogs and they pretty much do the same thing. They start licking their lips. They hunker down. They'll lay down and roll over, even if that's what's called for. And they're two completely different species, but they communicate. Yeah, you're the boss the same way.
People used to bow.
People did used to
People
bow.
still bow.
Yeah, so.
And there's like the psychology that, people who are taller than you are not like standing wise, but like the person who's sitting in a room, like who's like quote unquote the tallest, like they're the person who, like, whether intentional or unintentional, holds power in the room. And like that's the person that people tend to look to. Like you don't even know that you're doing it. It's just a subconscious thing. And there's like there's tactics to like holding the power in the room, is to like make sure that your chair isn't set to the lowest setting.
Interesting.
Like it's simple, really simple little things that are just a non-verbal way to communicate.
Yeah, and it's like maybe it's just there's so many variables involved with it. It's like we can perceive these things and think about these things and have a conversation to actually like figure all this stuff out, but like in the moment, this instantaneous thing is happening, and it's just way too much for any person to actually be able to perceive and fathom in that moment. But for some reason, even though we can't consciously think of it, it's like over the millennia that we've been evolving, we've somehow figured out all these, and not just us, but like all animals and mammals, and for whatever reason, we all share these same tendencies with each other, and it's something that is just like, it almost is like its own layer of existence in a way, or maybe you could even call that a dimension, of like just this higher communication that we all have as living beings. So,
And we don't understand it. We just do.
Yeah.
We just do. We kind of pulled away from the stairs a little bit, but
well, the stairs are their form of communicating, maybe.
the stairs take you to that new dimension. Whether you can get into the new dimension or not is not up to me. It's up to the stairs and what's on the other side.
See, it all comes back to the stairs,
Go climb some stairs.
just not in the woods.
Just not in the woods. Or if you're
Don't
really,
climb the stairs.
Or if you're really scared like me, just stay out of the basement. Not going down there for a couple of days. All right. Thank you.
This has been Tragedy with a View.
Thanks, guys.